Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Hinderer Knives Auto Eclipse, which absolutely fires quite a bit harder than the standard automatic XM18 3.5-inch auto. This is mine. The Eclipse was loaned to me by eKnives. Thank you so much to eKnives. It will go back to eKnives when I'm done. Check out eKnives. I'll have this linked in the description. It's available. There's actually a couple of different configurations, different finishes. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. So, a lot of people told me, yeah, the Eclipse fires harder than the XM18 3.5-inch auto. I thought, why would that be? After unboxing it, obviously I was like, yeah, they're right. So I put this on Instagram to share with everybody, and Hinderer Knives actually did chime in and say, here's why. The spring, where it sort of starts to build tension, it's in a different position, or it builds more tension in the closed position. It goes back further because of the design differences. You can still read this. It's on my Instagram. And so it does absolutely fire harder. But the spring is actually the same size in both. Now, this is my personal XM, and honestly, I don't have a problem with the power here. It's plenty powerful for me, as long as the blade is always going out to the open position. If I hold the button down, then it's obviously doing what it needs to do. But if you're really big into those automatic knives that fire hard, yeah, this is very much up there with ProTech and Microtech. It's also a big blade. This is 165 thousandths of S45VN, which, by the way, is definitely, as far as the steels that Hinderer Knives uses, this is the appropriate steel for this geometry, in my opinion. It's also what makes this knife unique over other autos is that it is actually titanium. Titanium is rarely used in autos because of the way that titanium gulls, I guess, and the stop pin position and impact and all of that can affect it. It must be hardened or something around the area where it would otherwise be problematic because Hinderer Knives is going ahead and doing it. I imagine that they will do aluminum versions of this and charge less because these are very expensive. If you've ever looked at Hinderer Knives and you're like, why are these so expensive? Hinderer Knives must think highly of themselves. Well, it turns out these are American high-end in-house production knives. 99% of this knife is made in-house in the United States, and despite the size of Hinderer Knives, they are still a small company if we compare to a company like Kershaw or Benchmade, etc. These are definitely made in a way that is a higher, it would be considered a higher tier. They are noticeably better in quality, and titanium is not inexpensive to mill or acquire. Like titanium is an expensive material, so yes, they're going to be substantially more expensive. But for those people who say, fine, it's still way too much money for me, I think Hinderer Knives plans to do aluminum versions of all of these periodically and charge, I think, less than half, if I remember correctly, maybe about half. But anyways, yeah, just wanted to get that out of the way first. Outside of that, I mean, it's essentially, it's just an automatic Eclipse. But I'm still going to give you guys my thoughts. So let's go ahead and do specs here real quick. Up against, well, no, not up against anything yet. Up against the tape measure, it is 8¼ inches, as all Eclipse knives have always been. They've never made a large Eclipse or a small Eclipse. I wonder why. Anyways, legitimately, I have no idea. 3.5 inches for the blade length, 3.35 for the cutting edge. Size comparisons, we'll just put it up against the XM18 Auto, which is the exact same size as a Hinderer XM18. So there you go. Up against the Demco 8010, and here recently I've been, it's stuck in the Excalibur rock there. I've been using my Excalibur as a second size comparison knife. So you can see here it's a little smaller than the Excalibur, and it's definitely smaller than something like the 8010. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. It's almost exactly the same overall length versus the Spyderco PM2. And then finally up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How is the action? Like I said, this is very satisfying. This is what I want my XM18 to feel like. You push the button, which is recessed, by the way, so you don't really need to worry about it going off in your pocket. You push that button, and every bit of that experience is quality. It just snaps. It's so much. It's so cool. I mean, it's under a lot of tension, and it's also like I said, a thick piece of material. This feels like a proper auto. I mean, this is a luxury switchblade, is what this is, and it's also a pretty freaking heavy duty knife. I mean, the cool thing about the autos, I mean, yeah, they are plunge locks, but again, you also have that spring keeping that, it's pushing that blade out into the open position. So it is much stronger than something like a standard plunge lock, but you also don't have the cut for the frame lock on this side. So you're just holding on to a huge solid titanium frame. I mean, this is about as heavy duty as an auto can get. It really is. It looks heavy duty, it feels heavy duty, and it legitimately is heavy duty. I mean, within the natural perimeters of what a knife should be used for. Yes, absolutely. It does fit that definition. The experience I have with the action is extremely positive. I love it. The action alone on this knife, I'm already a huge fan of Hinderer knives. The action alone makes me want to buy this model. I'm considering asking eKnives if I can just pay for it and then it can just stay here with me, because I very much love this. You can see it. You can see the reaction in my hand. I mean, that is a powerful knife. Absolutely wonderful. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's really not all that crazy. It is thicker, right? Not insane. I'm used to carrying Hinderer knives. I've owned over 35 individual Hinderer knives in my collector career, I guess you could say. That sounds stupid for a number of reasons, but yeah, I'm used to carrying Hinderer knives, but they do carry chunky, especially the titanium ones. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Did we do this backwards? We did. Really doesn't take up a whole lot of room. It's going to be heavier than either of these, right? And it's not quite as tall, but the Hinderer knives are pretty easy to carry. I like their pocket clip. So it is, fairly thick materials and a fairly thick blade. Let's go ahead and we'll actually measure the blade stock thickness so you guys can see. These standard thickness XMs are 165 thousandths. They should be almost, it's very, very close, 162. They should consider making skinny autos as well. I think that would be neat. With 145 thousandths. Let's go ahead and weigh it. Now, there's the scale. I would venture to guess that this knife weighs about 6 ounces. That's typically what the full tie ones weigh. Oh, no, it's less. And you know why? It's because I'm going off of the old versions of the tie scales with no internal milling. But this knife, obviously, has internal milling and on both sides, making it one of the lightest full-size, full titanium XM models I think I've ever experienced. What does the XM Auto weigh? Probably slightly more. I think this is a slightly bulkier design. 5.6, but not crazy. Heavy, but not insane. So there you go. Fully carryable. Balance, actually, I bet the balance is pretty good. And it is, and that's because the blade is a pretty big chunk of S45VN. Hardware check. I'll get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. Here's my question. So Hinderer loves their hex crap. It drives me nuts. Stupid hex heads. I think that's what this is on the XM. Now, but on the Eclipse, they've always been Torx, if you didn't know that. I think these are T8 Torx. Let's find out. And then obviously you have a flat head for the pivot, which is still kind of annoying. But it's also like, that's just like iconic, Hinderer knives. It's not that. It's going to be maybe a T6. Is it a freaking T6? Gosh darn it. Let's take a look here. And it is. These are T6, okay? 3 on each side. A lot of T6. And it is T6. Wish it was just a couple of screws in T8, but okay, not a deal breaker. You also have Phillips heads for the pocket clip. He's always done it like that, I've been collecting Hinderer knives for more than a decade, and there are many people who have collected them for far longer. They've always been this way. So yeah, you need a few different pieces of, you need a few different tools if you want to take this stuff apart. Fortunately, most people are going to have the tools that are required to take something like this apart. within whatever distance it is to your garage, right? These are all pretty straightforward tools. Yes, it would be nice if Hinderer would just streamline and do torques across the board, but he doesn't. So I've taken a bajillion of these apart. The most annoying part of taking apart these knives is switching the hardware, the tools required. But these are also autos. If you've ever taken apart an auto, there's a coil spring in the pivot, or there's a big spring inside of the pivot, and it will require holding things in place while fastening everything down and lining things up. That's a little tricky. If you can avoid taking apart your auto, I would. I would avoid taking apart your auto completely. I do not like taking autos apart, and I don't recommend it. I would contact Hinderer Knives before you do that. But I don't think your warranty's voided. I don't think warranties can be voided for disassembly anymore. But I would consider not taking it apart and just doing the hot soapy water, compressed air, and oil route. But if you have to, it is totally doable. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. We weighed it. We did all that. Yeah, we did everything. So meat and potatoes time. I love this knife. I've always loved the Eklipse. The Eklipse absolutely has superior ergonomic lines to the XM18, but the XM18 definitely does have nice ergonomic lines, and it has a choke up spot. So if you're trying to decide, do I go with the XM or do I go with the Eklipse, whether you're looking at the auto or the manual version, if you're looking at the manual, I like the versions that are not flippers. The flipper, I think, gets in the way ergonomically, and it's not really shaped optimally to bring that joy of deployment, right? You also get more ergonomic room, so I really like that. It makes far better use of the forward choil on the XM18. There is no forward choil, not really a usable spot. There's a little bit on the Eklipse, but it's just more comfortable in general, especially the thumb position. It just makes a lot more sense. Here, it's kind of like, well, I guess I'm going to put my thumb here. Here, this is like a dedicated thumb spot. It feels really, really good. The lock-in is great. The jimping's great, but I do wish they had continued up on to the spine of the blade like the XM here. I'm not sure why they didn't do that. But it's fine. The position that it's in right here, it's absolutely fine. Something else that we should mention, if you're going to disassemble these knives, you're going to need a spanner bit, or I think a lot of people use like that back part of a toenail clipper. You can also buy the Hinderer tool, but that is ridiculously expensive. So again, if you can avoid doing that, I would. I absolutely love Hinderer's stonewash finish. I talk about this all the time. It is one of my favorite finishes ever, and it's largely due to how Hinderer Knives does it. Now, they used to do it differently. This is a lot cleaner look, but I think the stonewashed finish on both the blade and the standard non-working finish, non-anodized titanium frames is the best looking, most classic Hinderer look ever. On top of that, we have these cool, this sort of perimeter milling area on the knife, which they don't do on any of the other scales for any of the other knives. It's just specific to the autos. And I love this. I think that really adds like a cool, unique, classy look. It sort of helps visually identify the automatic versions of these knives. And it's just, man, it just screams quality. On top of that, it does add meaningful traction. I can feel it while I'm gripping the knife. It feels good. The pocket clip, this is one of my favorite pocket clip designs in existence. It doesn't carry incredibly deep, but a deep clip doesn't necessarily mean it's a good clip. I would always prefer that the clip is deeper, but I don't mind that much of the knife sticking up out of my pocket, and in and out of the pocket is a breeze. Despite this partially sitting on the texturing, it's really very, very easy to carry. Hinderer logo right here. I always say I'm not a huge fan of billboarding, but I'm a little biased with Hinderer knives. I actually really like the Hinderer logo. They probably could make it a little bit smaller, but I doubt they will. It's kind of right there, where it's always been. It's not really ever been bigger or smaller. I mean, unless it's a certain model. The USA S45VN probably doesn't need to be so big. That has always been like this massive thing that they put on the other side. And yeah, they probably could make that smaller, but whatever. The blade profile on this guy it's just like a drop point blade with a nice swedge, a nice flat. It is very robust out to the tip. And also, we always have lots and lots and lots of different opinions about whether or not Hinderer knives are actually sharp. And it makes it so confusing. Specifically, if you have never bought a Hinderer knife and you're sitting there wondering, are they sharp? I hear so many different things. There are so many different people on Reddit and wherever, on YouTube, Instagram, saying that they come dull or whatever. They've got bad geometry. So I'll make this crystal clear, easy to understand, right? Obviously, you have ask a million people, get a million different answers, right? Yes, Hinderer knives are sharp. And as somebody who has literally owned over 35 of them over multiple generations, yes, occasionally you'll get one that's just not sharpened properly, right? There's a chance. If that happens, yeah, you send it back and they'll send you another one. That's how that's going to work, right? That occasionally happens. But as far as like when Hinderer knives are sharpened properly, are they sharp? Of course they are. Of course they're sharp. You have people on the internet who have absolutely absurd standards of what sharp is. Yes, obviously these are sharp. What people mean to say and are too lazy to explain is, I have absurd standards when it comes to defining something as sharp. I need it to be absurdly thin behind the edge, and I need to have painstakingly mirror polished the edge and made it to the point where I can split hairs that have already been split. Like, you don't have to listen to people who have absolutely insane standards. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have your blade that sharp. On top of that, that's more of a geometry thing. Does the Hinderer XM18 have poor cutting geometry? It's much easier to lean into that and say, yeah, generally, versus your typical pocket knife. Say, versus something like a Spyderco knife. A Spyderco PM2 has better cutting geometry for common knife tasks than a Hinderer XM18. So unhelpful and incredibly lazy people on the internet saying that Hinderer knives are dull, a lot of times they're just too lazy to explain exactly what they're talking about. A Spyderco PM2 simply has better cutting geometry for the average cutting task, but an XM18 or an Eclipse with heavier or thicker cutting geometry behind the edge will still do the vast majority of common tasks. It just won't do them with the utmost ease. It won't do it with the same laser precision as something like an Opinel. And for most people who are considering buying a Hinderer knife and have been hung up on this because they can never figure out what, people of the internet mean, you're hardly going to notice it. Unless you are the biggest geometry snob when it comes to cutting. You're going to be so overjoyed by owning the knife and just enjoying all the little intricacies, all the nice little finish things, that when you go to cut something, a small part of your brain might go, oh yeah, it's kind of a thick blade going through this cardboard, slows it down a little bit. And then that'll be it, and you'll finish the task and move on with your life. I've been trying to help people understand this for years and years and years on YouTube because there's just so much ridiculous, overblown, dramatic nonsense when it comes to cutting geometry. I'll tell you where my line is. Now, if you're like doing hyper-specific tasks, I mean, if you're using a knife in a way where you're using it so often, so hard for multiple hours a day, oh yeah, cutting geometry is really going to matter to you. Definitely. In that case, you do need a specialized tool. But if you're like me and you're going to casually get out your knife to make little cuts here and there, right? Maybe every now and then do some some extra cutting, right? Break down cardboard boxes for, 30 minutes or whatever. If you're going to use a knife like me, this will be perfectly fine, right? You don't need specialized cutting geometry for anything like that. But I think for that reason, it would be a good idea for Hinderer to make a skinny version of this with like a hollow grind or something. But yeah, it really matters to some people. And so they get really aggressive about it and they become incredibly unwilling to really describe what it is that they're saying. It's just easier for them to say it's dull and then move on. But yes, periodically, Hinderer knives will ship out a knife where the edge just isn't properly sharpened. And I don't mean specifically Hinderer does that, or they're notorious for doing it more often than other companies. That's simply what's going to happen with knives in general. I've had Spyderco knives come to me with not so great factory edges. It's rare, but I have had that happen, and I send them back, right? Out of all of the Hinderer knives that I have ever owned, I have had one that I thought had an unsatisfactory edge. I have never had a Hinderer knife shipped to me that felt legitimately dull outside of that one. So, but I've also had a Shirogorov knife shipped to me with a dull edge. So it can happen with anybody. But just to clear that up, right? If you're newer, you're good, right? But anyways, yeah. The cutting edge on this, nice and even all the way through. As per usual, Hinderer knives are usually absolutely perfect in the fit and finish department. Nothing looks wonky or anything like that. No lanyard hole on the Eklipse. I think it's always been that way. No lefty mounting position on this either, which I found a little odd. I can still operate it. I feel like left-handed people probably would just like to have a mounting position, right? No filler tabs or anything on these guys, on the autos. I find that a little strange. So ultimately, it comes down to, and like, yeah, the lockup is totally solid, and the centering, there's no button stick or anything like that. I believe the centering is absolutely perfect. Yeah, no surprise there. So what's the price tag? $650. $650. Yeah, Hinderer knife prices, believe it or not, have not changed for like at least 10 years. Like, they've been that way. It's not new. You know, a lot of new people hop into the knife world and they hear about a knife like this and they're like, knife prices are getting out of control. It's been that. It's not new. It's new to you, but it's not new. We're not getting out of control. Everything, generally speaking, is going up. But the idea of knives being expensive is not like this all of a sudden thing, right? Expensive knives were around far before the knife world was as popular as it is now, right? That's just people not really knowing the history of this knife industry and community. Hinderer knives, like I said, are super expensive because not only are they USA made, but they are made almost entirely in-house. They're also hand-tuned and hand-assembled. The finish work, the machining is much more in-depth than what we would typically see from Benchmade, Spyderco, or definitely Kershaw, right? So all of those elements, whether or not they matter to you, all of those elements cost more money. So Hinderer knives absolutely do cost more money to produce. And again, we're looking at titanium, not steel, not carbon fiber, not aluminum. We're looking at titanium. Expensive, right? Then they go back and they finish it, make it look all nice. So is it worth it? Yeah, I don't know why it's not the exact same price as a full titanium Eklipse. The standard Eklipse is $425, and then if you want to swap out the G10 scales with titanium, it's another $200. Which I think is a little bit ridiculous for just like one titanium scale. So truthfully, if you were asking me, do I think that the standard Eklipse is overpriced? No. I think the titanium scales are overpriced, and they're taking that and then adding another $25 to it. Realistically, I think this knife should probably cost about $550, $575. But it doesn't cost that. It costs $650. So is it worth it? If you're a massive Hinderer fan and you love the idea of owning a titanium Eklipse, you will absolutely love this. It will blow your mind. If you don't specifically want that, then no. I would just honestly just look into picking up a standard, Eklipse or a standard Hinderer knife at $425, which is the price that they have been, again, for at least a decade. But I think that they should make more aluminum autos because those are way less. I think that they should consider making a smaller one, especially with these being non-flipper. Like, they're already set up ergonomically really well. It's really odd to me they've never made a smaller Eklipse. This is, for me personally, though, an extremely cool knife. I'm a huge fan of Hinderer knives. So for me, this is going to go in my favorite knives of all time playlist because it's very cool to actually, like 10 years ago, if you'd have been like, hey, in like 2024 or when did this release? 23, 24? They're going to have full titanium Eklipse automatics and XM18 full automatics. That would have blown my mind, right? So it's really cool. As a Hinderer fan, I absolutely love this. It's going to go in my favorite knives of all time. It's just really, really awesome. Outside of that, though, it is legitimately not recommendable to everybody. It's only recommendable to certain people, and very few people I would recommend this to. So anyways, that's it for today. That is my review of the Auto Eklipse. Very, very cool and very, very powerful. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.